Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Anyway, today we have another cuckoo clock to work on. Nancey sent me this clock. All I have to do is pay shipping, and she's given me the clock, which is fine for me. Anyway, I ended up with two clocks. One's a small clock with a bouncing girl on it, and like she said, it probably needs a new spring for the girl to bounce on. We'll check that out. But this clock that I got now is a smaller cuckoo clock. It's an older cuckoo clock because on the dial it says Germany compared to West Germany. And I can't remember the year of when that changed, but it does tell me it's an older clock. This is a smaller cuckoo clock also, and more than likely from the Black Forest. Anyway, let me show you the clock. So this is the clock without the topper sitting on it. We're approximately 8.5 by, well, this will be the bigger part. You usually go by the biggest part, and we're almost 6.5 inches wide. This does come with a topper, which looks like it was repaired with hot glue. And so I need to peel that off the best I can to try to get this thing back together again and looking nice. And of course, usually when you're gluing things together, besides using regular wood glue, using rubber bands as a clamp seems to work quite well because a rubber band you can get in there compared to a small clamp. This does come with a weight or a pendulum. It's got a little bit of smear glue on there. Yep. So whether this actually got broke, which it looks like it might have got broke, I don't know if it's got the nails in it on both sides. So we'll have to take a look at that. Also, your hook is coming down this way so you can hook onto it. So that tells me your pendulum bob is on the wrong side. There we go. And we do have two weights. I see a number, I don't ever understand that, but there's a small number 10 there. And that's all I see. They've lost the hook on there, so they came up with their own idea, which is totally understandable. This clock used to belong to, I guess, her grandpa Tom's, I think the box said. We do have quite a bit of wear on the white numbers. These are, I'm going to say they are painted on there. The hand is broke. The topper, this side was made. It doesn't belong to the clock, but there's supposed to be two of them like this. And the idea is the one that's really pointed off to the side, on the back of the topper, it has screws, and you'd hook this side in first, and then this should just set down in its place. And so you can buy these online at a clock parts place. I have a couple of them I go to because sometimes the one doesn't have the part I'm looking for and the other one seems to have it. Let's take a look at the back side. And looking at this, looks like all the pieces here are here. They're not broke off or anything. So I have the small gong on there. There is a date on here. 26. Can't tell the next number, but it looks like 57. I'll show it on the camera because normally the camera can pick it up better than I can read it. I see one of the bellows has fallen out. The screw's not in anymore. Actually, I don't know why they had a screw there and there. And normally you only put one screw in. This is tangled up inside there, so I'm going to have to... Oh, here we come, maybe. I'm going to have to mess with it. Obvious, the bellows need repaired. This looks like it's leather, but it looks like it's been soaked with oil because everything acts like it's coated with something, feels waxy or whatever. So I could be wrong, but you can tell something's wrong there. And this is not a good thing, putting a screw up into this area. This here piece of wood is a reed to make the whistle sound, and because that was messed with, I'm surprised it makes a noise at all. So everything looks like it just almost got sprayed with something because the whole thing is just kind of coated in here. Anyway, let me get these wires released, get the pendulum wire off. We're going to take this other bellow out and see just what we have inside there. So box out, like I say, everything you can tell is really coated with something. It's nice having the bellow tops so I can put them back. This looks like it should have been a smaller one, but it's a big one. And they've added extra weight because things weren't working, I guess. There is a rip in this bellow. I plan on, in the paper or leather, I plan on replacing these anyway. Now, if you'll look, the wire was already off. You see this eye hook, the way it's facing, that isn't the way they're supposed to face, because the wires always fall off. Let me get something smaller here. You normally want them up and down like this so the wire can hook in and then it'll stay in there. Now, I also wanted to mention, to my understanding, because I don't go to a clock shop, I fix my own. But to my understanding, all Cuckoo clocks, they're going to, just to look at your clock, they're going to charge you $450. That's what I'm told. So I understand totally why people don't bring their clocks in, because like they've said, if this clock isn't worth that much to you, then why would you pay that much money just to have them look at it, not counting cleaning and oiling the clock? So that's why I started, besides it's fun, I started working on my own clock. This clock, it's got 2 screws in it. There's a screw laying down there, and it should have 4 screws to hold the movement in. So we'll be taking that out. But let me release the bird first, which I don't know why the wire is still upward, because it'll drag on here and it won't come out. They do say when you're putting in new ones, you're not supposed to leave your wire super long here anyway, and they suggest, if you find them like this, to clip them back so they're a little bit shorter. So he's released. The nut is is loose. Looks like it's got a washer on there. That might have been glued in there, but it does have a small square hole in there. Sometimes getting parts for these really old clocks, normally they're super big squares and you have to kind of make your own. This here's just wedged on. Now let me go ahead and take the ends of the chains off. Forgot to take the pendulum wire part off. Stick a screwdriver in there and spread it a little bit. This is, like I say, it's really coated with something, and I don't doubt someone sprayed something in there, possibly WD-40, who knows what could be in there. So let me get these chains hooks off. Oh shoot. Started the Cuckoo without the bellows. Let me get those off and then we'll take the movement out and we'll see what this movement looks like. So anyway, like I say, it won't even tick because it's very thick. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart. Oh, and I did forget to take, or kind of left you guys hanging on the whistle box. I told you it had a screw in here, and then looks like they had a screw up in the reed part. If you're having a problem with your clock, as in the screw is, let's call it, stripped out, you can add on the whistle box itself a little piece of wood with glue, let it dry, and then when you insert the screw back into the hole again, it filled the hole and now it'll hold. Of course, there should be a nail down here, not a screw and a screw. And looks like there was a screw hole right there, but for some reason it's all taped up. And like I say, I'm not sure how much, if this is all original or what it is, but we're going to make those work. You can tell how dirty this is, whether it's dirt or dirt and oil mix. His mouth does open though. So let's see. This says B100, and then below it says 150. You'll be able to see, I'll be able to see, and you'll be able to see this better. It says Cuckoo Clock Manufacturing Company Incorporated, Germany. and that's the only thing I see on the movement. So what we're going to do first, like I said, we're going to take this thing apart. And so the first thing we need to do we're going to take this E-clip off here and take this E-clip off here and go from there. This here will release this washer, big washer, and what it does is it holds this gear down, and it also holds the snail down, so it doesn't want to come up when you're messing with the hands or anything else, and it doesn't start throwing it at a time. Now this is a clock that you have to worry about. I've talked about this before in other videos, and I was almost wondering why I haven't come up with another clock like that. This here is supposed to have a riser on it, so the gears match up. Here is a little barrel that's a riser to get that gear up. You got to pay attention to that each time you take any clock apart, because you don't want to lose that barrel. So that's off. This here is what, first off, this here is what drops onto that snail to tell the clock what hour it is. When it drops down, this here will drop down to whatever hour it is. And then this here is supposed to be free enough it catches. And then as this Pac-Man wheel spins, it'll catch this and keep moving it up for each hour at Cuckoo's. Once it's done, this brings this back in, and that's what inside there will release the bird then. There we go. Don't want to lose it. A normal E-clip would fit on there too if you happen to lose it, as long as you got the right size. And now this one will come off. So to get the Cuckoo bird rod off, don't want to bend it any more than you have to, but you stick a screwdriver in here and bend it out a little bit, just so it's not so much pressure on it. That one's really bent out already. And if you can, unhook the Cuckoo bird. Well, it's the wire that springs them back in. This is just bent around. Well, it came back in. Don't matter. Put your screwdriver in here and give it a twist. That one still feels really solid, so I'm going to open up just a little bit more. So you twist it, it pops out. Let's twist this one. Sometimes it takes a fatter or taller screwdriver to lift that up out of the hole. And this still feels pretty tight. Oh, and by the way, maybe you should be taking pictures before you start this so you can see where the levers are, where a lot of this stuff is, including, because this is your hand shaft, you should have it down here and take pictures in here trying to really look close at the gears, because possibility, oh shoot, that's not even on. The part of the pendulum's out of its, I'm not even sure if it ran, well, it probably didn't run as stiff. But anyway, look inside here, taking good close pictures, and hopefully you have enough light so you can see the gears this way to get your clock back together again. Pay attention. Here's a spring wire. Pay attention about that spring wire and who it hooks up to or whatever. Looking in there. Looking in there. Look at this. Here's another spring wire. This is stuff you need to take a picture of so you understand how this clock goes back together. What I'm planning on doing is taking the nuts off, and I'm going to try to get this apart to leave the gears where they are so you can take a picture downward to see where they go better. But in case these pictures confuse you, maybe the picture from the top will be much easier to look at, or you'll have them all to look at so you don't mess up. So because this part of the pendulum is already fallen out, let me see if I can get it out of here. And normally now we want to take these levers off. So you have to look in here to see what's holding them. This lever here, besides the spring in the way a little bit, there's the E-clip there. And this lever here has the E-clip on the inside as well. So I'll get those E-clips out and we'll go from there. So we got both those E-clips out. Now let's see if we can wiggle this thing out. This is the one with the spring wire on it. Here's your 2-point star wheel. One will make it cuckoo on the half hour. The other one will make it cuckoo on the hour as this spins around. Oh, we got this here is what'll lock the cuckoo bird in. And I see we have another E-clip here. And an E-clip in here to keep it from going too far up. It kind of gets caught on the gear there, so don't force it. If need be, take it out after you get your nuts off and separate the plates. So let me get my fancy dancy feet on here and we'll take those nuts off. Oh, and let's go ahead and take these off too. If you'll look, there's some small E-clips in here that you need to take off, and then they'll just pop right out, or should anyway. I already pulled the gong out, but I forgot this here doesn't have an opening over here. The opening's on the inside, and you have to line up your flapper that causes it to cuckoo right there. You have to line that up with the hole to get them out. And because this clock's a little dirty, it's kind of hanging up there, but it should be fine going back in. And these springs, I'm going to leave them on there, but normally if they're loose enough, you can push them back through, because inside here, actually the end of this has been smashed, and so it looks like a screwdriver on the end, and that's what wedges inside that hole to hold it into place. Now these are really teeny nuts on here, which reminds me of your novelty clocks. They're so small. So anyway, we got these 4 nuts off. Let's see if we can get this thing apart comfortably without everything falling out. Of course, this has got the spring on this side, and the spring there, you gotta be careful with them if you took them out, to make sure they're not hanging up on the plate or whatever. So here you can see just how maybe dirty this thing is. Like I say, I don't doubt this has been sprayed with something. And lots of dust in there. Oh my goodness. So we have this out, checking the clicker. This has got the wire inside, so I rate this the better clickers. I don't doubt this is a 40s, 1940s maybe, just by looking at some of the stuff I'm looking at. This is holding good. See all that oil and gunk in here? This has got the good clicker also. Really dirty, but whatever they sprayed on here, it's loosened it up. It's just really oily or dirty right now. This here, I actually wanted to show you. You see that there? That is the dust, maybe cat, dog hair, whatever, that was on here. That tells you how filthy these clocks can get. That one I could take that off if I wanted to, but I don't, because it is pressure fitted, and it'd be easier to time the clock if I took it off, but sometimes they don't like going back on, or they're too loose or whatever, and you have to glue it possibly. That just fell off. It's the one with the warning pin. And this is also pressure fitted on. I'm not concerned about it either, because if I was concerned about it or having a problem, then I'd go ahead and pop it off. Sometimes these things are loose, depending on the clock, or depending what's happened to the clock before, and you'll have to ping this brass gear up against the steel to snug them up. Otherwise they'll start slipping, and when it would gong or cuckoo, that would be off only because that slipped. So let me get these parts in the cleaner, and I'll be back after that. So like I mentioned earlier, you see the eye is turned so it's this way. Just to explain it a little bit better, this would be your lift wire pushing it up, and it'll fall out. If you were to take that thing and get it turned the way it's supposed to be, so it's straight up and down, now you have to angle this to get it into the hole. And now it pushes up and down, and it stays there. It doesn't fall. Your wire doesn't fall off. And you don't have to crimp the end of that. It's made to be just like that. Let's see what they got underneath here. So they have a weight. I was kind of hoping it'd be a coin, an old coin. And then they have a weight underneath there. I have a locking washer. And there's the original piece of metal weight in here. And what I'll do is when I'm putting the new tie-back paper on here, I'll go ahead and make a piece that goes over here to hold that in, because I do it all the time by accident. I'll be holding this and doing this thing. I accidentally put my thumb there and I press it in and I break the paper. And so I end up having to use tie-back paper to seal that back in there again. Now after these are rebuilt and everything's working, the weight of your wire, the weight of the lift arm that goes over to the star that triggers it should be enough to shut these again. Like I say, these things are quite loaded with oil. Everything's just coated with it. There's nothing I can do about that. And this here board, underneath there is the reed to make the sound. This is coming off, and so I'm going to have to take that board off and re-glue it on there if I can. But I got lots of extra tape I got to take off. And I'm not blaming the person that had this clock trying to fix it, because they were trying to fix it compared to bringing it in, just that possibly my videos weren't made for them for them to check out to see how to fix this stuff. Like I said, this board is broke up into pieces, and so I'll have to deal with that as well. And I might even make a new board to put on there so it's not broke up in pieces. See right here, this middle piece, that's the reed that this board covers over, and then it's set in just enough that the air blows out this and blows by this box, and that's what makes the sound it makes. So covering them, I did glue that over where the weight is, and while rebuilding these, that won't work until I get the board. While rebuilding these, we've got holes on this side. I covered them up. There's holes on that side. I say these tops don't belong to this whistle box. The bellows themselves are too big, but we can make them work. And also, the clock doesn't necessarily have to open it as far because it's a small whistle. If they were not knowing what they were thinking, unless that's what they found, if you're trying to make the clock have a louder cuckoo, it'd be this you would replace, and then you have to worry about, does it fit in the box? And normally you don't change those. By the way, I weighed one of these. These are a 250 gram weight each. These plates, everything in this thing was extremely dirty. As in, whatever it was they sprayed in this clock wasn't WD-40, and even my cleaner couldn't it got it off kind of, but not necessarily. And so I always use, after my cleaner, I use Dawn dishwash soap, and I scrubbed and scrubbed. You could tell it didn't necessarily want to come off. It was, even with the dawn, it was almost trying to bead with whatever's on there. And so, like I said, I know it's not WD-40. I'm going to go ahead and remove what I call the Pac-Man, because I want to try to clean up these plates. Now this is the front of the clock. Nobody's going to see it, but I want to clean them up better than they are. This is the back. It'd be easy to clean. There's nothing on it. And taking these off, sometimes you can get underneath here and pry them up. You got a chance of bending it. You got a chance of using your pliers with the teeth, because usually that's what it takes. But you got a good chance of scarring it up. I'm going to try to hold it and twist the gear, which is twisting. I don't know if it's going to come out or not. Yeah, it's coming out. And that's how you get them off, especially if you have to replace it because the pin broke or something and don't know how to add a pin. You normally can buy replacements. This one looks like it might be difficult because of the shape of it. They're not normally egg-shaped. So with that off, now we can get this gear off. I'm not going to remove that one. You could get it off easy enough by getting down here away from those threads and tapping it, or you might be able to get a screwdriver underneath here and start prying to get it to come loose. And like I say, that's wedged on there, so it's not too much of a heart attack. This fan, when I was cleaning this movement, I noticed that it's really, really loose. And so I think this cuckoo clock probably speeds through its cuckooing when it's counting the hour. The way you can fix it, like I said, this just almost falls off. You have this center here that pushes down on the rod, because the rod comes through and it has these bumps here that actually hold it into place. So your center, you want to push that down just a little bit more. Don't get carried away, but a little bit more, and that should take care of it being too loose. So now it doesn't want to go on because it's pushing properly. So I have to lift that a little bit to get this in place. And now it doesn't free spin as much as it did. So I'm happy with that. The plates turned out nice and shiny compared to what you saw just before. And remember, whether you use a cleaner on here or not, you still are tearing down the whole movement. Make sure to always run toothpicks through the holes until they come clean. Here's some dirty ones here. And toothpicks are clean, so or are cheap, so use as many as it takes until you start coming clean. Myself, I normally run the toothpicks on one side of the plate, and I turn it over and I run it through the other side of the plate until, like I say, the toothpicks come clean. Now I'm got to pay attention when I put this movement back together, because with the shine now, I can tell that this plate is bent in a few places, like maybe they're trying to snug it up or something, I don't know. But anyway, here's clearly, you can see it says Cuckoo Clock, Manufactured Incorporated, Germany, B100, and then 150. So that tells me I got it together. I got my nuts tightened. We got our spring wires setting out. And now I guess I can start putting in our stops or levers to make sure everything's working the way it should, including getting this one put back. All I need is a E-clip. Find the hole there. There we go. Get the E-clip back in there, and then we can start getting this thing timed, especially when it comes to the gong and the cuckoo. So before I start putting all the extra levers on and whatnot, I want to oil my clock, because not so much on this side, but on the other side, the levers will be covering some of these pivots to where it's going to be difficult to oil, and I'd have to oil it from the inside of the plate. On this movement, I've noticed these here ends of the gears are really, really small. And so you're not going to want to force the plates together and try to force each one of the gears or whatever to come into the pivot area, because you do, more than likely, you'll be breaking off the ends that go into the pivots, and that's not a good thing. You always get if you can, get a couple of the nuts started, and then slowly start pushing on your plate and moving the gears into place, and try to get one side done first and then work on the other. So far I have enough end play, and the end play is up and down. I've looked at them pushing them sideways, and everything seems to be tight. I don't see anything that I need to redo any of the bushings. I'm going to get up underneath here. And what I call the Pac-Man was here. I don't have to worry about reach underneath, because I can get it now here. So now the clock is quiet when I'm turning it. With this clock, this lever here gets lifted by the star wheel. When it gets lifted, it's supposed to come up here, lift this up, and that went into warning, and then once this thing drops past, then it's supposed to cuckoo, which obviously we can't run too much, because this here's what drops past. When this here lever drops down to here, that's when it's supposed to shut it off. So what I'm finding is I need to move this piece that's on this one also move it down a little bit because it's not going up high enough to trigger this. So I pulled it down just a little bit. I put pressure here. We're going to come around with our star wheel, and then we're going to look here to see if it'll lift high enough to get it to set the warning pin. The warning pin just moved. The gear with the warning pin, and bam, it works. So let's throw this stuff back on. Now we don't have our Pac-Man on yet, so this isn't going to fully work. Let's see. So we're going to come around. Oop. I flipped over too fast. Set and clicked. But now this isn't dropping. Maybe it's because it doesn't have a spring on it. Warning pin just set. Let me see if I can set this again. So this has got to come around. The warning pin has set, but this isn't coming up to get ready for the time it is. Starting to come up now. Didn't come up high enough. So I have to open that up just a little bit more. Put pressure on this. It's coming up. It dropped to what it needed to be. And it'll keep running because I don't have the Pac-Man on yet. So that looks like it's opening up far enough now because I did move this lever, and that's on this clock. It's two separate pieces all combined into one. So now that this is shut off, it's ran through its cycle or whatever you want to call it. Now we can put the Pac-Man on there and make sure. See, what do we do with that Pac-Man? Make sure the pin falls in the mouth, and we're talking this pin here. We have it set all the way. So we need to put it on there so it falls right down in. And notice this here, a half hour it shouldn't drop hardly at all. If that's a half hour, it's going too much. So I might have it open just a little bit too much because it's a fine line there. See this here, if it's a half hour, it's only supposed to go up just a little bit. And it's not supposed to fall every time. So I have to close it just a little bit to hit that happy medium. Let's see if we got it a half an hour or not. There's the half hour. See, this doesn't fall on the half hour. It just moves a little bit. Coming back to the hour again. There's the hour. See how it fell all the way down? And when we stop, that peg is inside the mouth. It doesn't go any further down. Normally they go clear down in. So let's do the half an hour again. There's the half hour. You notice it didn't drop, just very little. Anyway, I'm more worried about getting over here to where the 12 is. There's our half hour. Here comes our maybe 12. I think it'd be easier or better if I put the nut on there with the hand so I can turn it better. Easier for my hand. But anyway, I'm going to pop this down again. You see where this pointer is pretty close over here to the 11. I prefer just a little bit closer to here, but you don't want it so close it's going to hit. To adjust that, you'll lift this up and move it a tooth on this. So moving it a tooth, see we'll call it in the middle. And you can see it's got plenty of clearance here. Now we come to our half hour. What did I do with my hand? There's the 1 o'clock. You can see this hand's not in the right area. And it doesn't hurt to go all the way through. Usually once I'm at the 12 o'clock position, I'm happy with that. But right now we're hitting right in the middle of things, so I'm happier with that than what I was before. So let me get my E-clip on there. I'm going to drop some oil in there first, and I'm going to drop some oil in there, and then don't forget your washer, and then your E-clip. Look below the video here. It talks about or explains about what the clock is and whatnot. You hit more, and there'll be more in there more than likely. And I have friends that I'm asking you to subscribe to. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt anything, but it does help the people that are working on clocks, and that's what I'm going to showcase in this video. And where to find it, of course, besides me. So we got the movement going now, and one thing to remember, I'm working with what came with this clock. I already know those bellow tops don't go with this clock, and you can tell just by the way this clock acts as I get it going. And I did explain a little bit about that several times already in this video, and more than likely part 2 of this video. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe because it's free. And until next time, God bless.